by a female songwriter who was very famous in the 70s, but my favourite album of hers is this album, and it's called Boys in the Trees. Carlysimon was very famous for You're So Vain, Nobody Does It Better, for the James Bond film and all this stuff. Carlysimon also had married Jamestaylor, which also had some, devastating effects, because James Taylor was in and out of mental institutions, high as a kite half the time, causing all sorts of problems. But one thing with this Carlysimon album, this was actually, I think, her best-selling album. I think it won a few Grammys. Got some great musicianships. She has, in example, produced by Arif Mardin, who's now dead, but he was very known in the Atlantic record label. Really clever guy, and there's some just really great musicianship. She actually sings on one of the tracks. She actually duets with Michael McDonald, which is a really classic track. And with this album, it's really funky. Really got some great stuff on it. So yeah, You Belong to Me was actually co-written by Michael McDonald and Carlysimon, and very much you've got this quite minimalistic, but you can imagine it like in a bar or so forth. You Belong to Me is about the idea of this relationship, of this clash, and kind of the idea of jealousy. Boys in the Trees, most of these songs are actually written by Carlysimon, apart from One Man Woman, written by James Taylor, and Devoted to You, which was written by, a guy called Boule Brian. I don't know who that is. I think it's a foreign song, but a lot of these ideas are really good little funky songs, kind of interesting. I think very autobiographical, and really beautiful album. It's one of them albums that when you listen to, it's Carlysimon, I don't think was always rated as highly as, say, like Carol Bayer as a musician, or Carole King, or maybe Roberta Flack, or so forth. But Carlysimon's a great writer. When we're looking at all these different people who write songs, she's also very good about writing these really catchy songs, great melodies, really heartfelt, and I think 1978, this is probably her last best work. She's done some other good stuff with like Why and all that stuff, and they're good songs, but her albums just, I don't know what personally was going on with Carlysimon, but I think this was kind of her peak. And when we're looking at songs like Back Down to Earth, and she's talking about these, I think it's kind of like the song she's talking about. She uses these very great tone poetries and metaphors and all these ideas, and it is, I think a lot of these, I'm sure about her relationship with James Taylor, because there's some stuff she's talking about how things work, and it's like this innocence, and this kind of, a lot of this Boys in the Trees album is kind of, it's like she's talking about her early life, what it was like living, in the country or whatever that was. It's really good stuff, but then she's mentioning different things about how she feels in different ways, sometimes not in good ways, but she always keeps updated, upbeat with anything. A lot of this stuff is very pining. Like, for example, she's got something like the bat fly in the face. It's like this sort of African feel thing, and it's quite interesting how she sings that, because you'd think it would be written by an African artist, and it's not, it's by her. So she just shows, I think there's a lot of her influence she's been hearing, and then she just puts it in this album, and really rate it. There's some great, the horn section's got Randy Brecker in it, Michael Brecker. She's got some really good, some of the, like, she does some of the play, she doesn't do most playing, she's more the background vocalist and the vocalist and the songwriter, but the musicianship, I could just even look at some of these, you can see some really, like, she's got Steve Gadd on the drums. These are great musicians who she really, it's got this kind of New York feel, but then she's got this kind of country feel to it, and it's also, the songs are really strong, like it's not a weak song on it. Whereas I think with Carlysimon, with a lot of her other albums, she had some really strong singles, like 2 or 3, and then the rest of the albums kind of was a bit mediocre. whereas this she doesn't. And I think this is why I rate this higher than Carole King's Tapestry, because the tracks are really upbeat and it's just got this really great feel. And I think that's really interesting when we're looking at where we're going with music at the time, and when I used to listen to songs. And I remember hearing this album probably while I was a young teen, and I used to like it, and I heard it on vinyl, and it was quite hard to get hold of. It was quite commercial at the time, from the time. But I heard it, put it on tape, and then listened to it, and then I kind of, many years later, I got back into it after my music degree. I never heard it for a while, and a friend of mine played it to me, and I kind of thought, oh, I forgot this album, and I really got into it. So I just liked that idea, and I just thought that some of the ideas, it sounded like great singer-songwriter music, but also could have that R&B feel, soul feel, so forth. And Carlysimon's just got a great voice, got really, like, you know, really poignant. So yeah, Boys in the Trees, really good album, very good singer-songwriter albums, and great from a female perspective, but also writes about males characters in the songs. Yeah, highly recommended, and probably not an album most people know about or have forgotten about from the 70s, but really good writing. So yes, please have a listen to Carly Simon's Boys in the Trees.